Hello, Uggies worldwide. I'm Dave Kassler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, here with episode, are you ready for it, 200 of Ask Dave. And what we're going to do today is a walkthrough of the very popular Icom 7300 HF and 6-meter radio. This is a loan from a member of my amateur radio club, which is the Montrose Amateur Radio Club, and he didn't want any kind of credit or anything like that, so let's just think kind thoughts about a radio ham in Olathe, Colorado. All right, and what we have here is the Icom 7300, and I thought what I'd do here for Ask Dave 200 is give a tour of the radio and a couple things that I've discovered so far looking at it. And we'll go into a bit more depth in the next video. This video, we're going to just basically take a tour around the front and back. Okay, the big thing that people like about this radio is this screen right here, where you are looking at just a huge amount of information. Now, one of the things that is different about this radio that you have to take into account is the fact that a lot of the menus are available by touching the screen. You don't have buttons for everything. I remember when I first turned it on, I was looking everywhere for the band button so I could change bands. Well, as it turns out, what you do is you touch the band up the top, and then you can pick another band, and that's how you change the bands. So it failed the no manual test for me. I had to resort to the manual. Now, there are two manuals that come with the 7300. The printed one is called the basic manual. This is the basic manual. It goes on and on and on. One thing that's in it that's interesting is an index. Unfortunately, it could go on for many more pages. It's just 2 pages. I would think that you'd want every button listed in the index and every function listed in the index, and that is not the case. It just seems to cover other things. So you have to go into the table of contents here, where things are organized so that you can see if you can come up with what you want. So let's look at the radio. First of all, it needs 12-volt power supply. Okay, it's going to draw up to 23, 24 amps, so it's going to need at least a 25 amp, preferably a 30 amp power supply. Right now, I have it plugged into my PowerWorks. Let's see, this is an SS30DV, which SS30DV, right. SS30DV, which gives you 12 volts at up to 30 amps. It's really a 25 amp power supply that'll surge to 30, like on voice peaks and things like that. The radio is small. My hand can reach from side to side on this radio. Now, granted, I have big hands, but still, that is a small radio. Now, that may seem like a problem for those who need to get to small buttons and gadgets, but actually, since you're going to use the screen to go through most everything, it's not so much of a problem. The power button is up here, glows green when there is power. I did notice that there is a idle timeout in here that I'm sure you can find in here. Oh, there is one other manual. There's a CD that comes with the radio, and it has the detailed manual, which is much thicker than this. I would suggest printing that and then taking it down to Office Depot, Office Max, or Staples and having it spiral bound so that with some plastic covers so that you can refer to it easily, because you will for the more esoteric features about this radio. This transmit button puts the device into transmit, and you can see down here on the scope what your transmitted audio looks like. There's a tuner. You can tune the tuner on and off. If you want to tune it to the antenna, you hold it in for a second, and it clicks for a few seconds and comes in with the right stuff. See, it says tuners now in gray. It's tuned to the antenna. The antenna I'm using right now is an MFJ hex beam. And the very first QSO I had with this radio was with a guy in Canada, and the second QSO was with a guy in Italy. So I was, needless to say, very impressed with the radio. Okay, so that is the tuner right there. The voice-operated relay is something I do not recommend using on HF. Use the push-to-talk button rather than let your voice key it, because if you let your voice key it, it'll drop out on pauses. If there's some noise in the room, you know, somebody in the family drops something, it'll cause it to transmit. Now, the other thing that's on there is break-in, which is a Morse code or CW function. Break-in means that when you push the key, you start to transmit, and between every dit and dah, you can hear the receiver. That's called full break-in. Now, there's partial break-in where there's a little bit of a delay before it kicks back to receive, and you can adjust that delay. Underneath here is an 1/8 inch jack where you plug in your headset. Now, a lot of headsets these days have 1/4 inch jacks. So you will want to get an adapter for that so you can go into the 1/8 inch here. Okay, I believe that's probably a stereo plug, even though it's a mono output. The mic connector is right here. It is one of the classic Icom. We'll take any of the Icom mics. The microphone is very, very simple. It has a little up and down button here for changing the frequency by some set amount, okay? Now, one thing I noticed while talking about changing the frequency, as you tune this knob, it starts out slowly, and this again is adjustable. It starts out slowly, and then as you continue tuning it, it'll speed up, which makes it much easier to get from one end of the band to the other. Now, this up here is something called twin passband tuning. This allows you to move the center frequency of where you are listening. There's the low end, the high end. That's why they call it twin. You can push the button on this. This is a button. And if you've tuned it here, it will bring it back to center. Okay. So that's actually very handy when they're nearby stations. You can move the passband without moving the receive frequency, and you can start to chop out frequencies that are causing interference. There's a little button down here on the preamps, preamp off, preamp 1, preamp 2. Okay, normally you would leave this with the preamp off. Now, they say in the book that the preamp will improve the signal-to-noise ratio. Preamps also introduce receiver noise a little bit down at very, very low levels. You might end up using this on 15 meters, 12 meters, or 10 meters, something like that. Might help you a little bit, otherwise leave it off. Now, the notch filter, there are different kinds of notch filters. Automatic notch, if there's a carrier in there, it will just eliminate it. Carrier is a steady tone. Don't use this on Morse code because you're trying to receive steady tones. There's also a mode where you can tune the notch and then you can leave it off. Normally this would be off. Now here's the noise blanker. It has 2 modes, on or off. Now what a noise blanker does is it looks for impulse noises like an ignition spike. Cars these days don't have that problem because they use good ignition cables. But older cars, you'd get the tick, 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 tick every time the spark plug fired. Another problem, I know my FTDX 3000, which is sitting right here, has an additional noise blanker for wideband noise that will take care of things like the Russian woodpecker, the Chinese over-the-horizon radar, and things like that. Okay, now this next one is very important, and that's the noise reduction filter. And you can, with the menu sets, change the level of noise reduction. This is one of the major benefits of having a software-defined radio, which is what this is. This is not a super heterodyne. This is a fully software-defined radio. The conversion from analog to digital takes place right as the signal comes in. There's a minor bit of amplification, and then bam, it's digitized, and it goes from there. Now, here are your RF, which is the outer ring, okay, and the inner ring, which is the audio volume or audio frequency. Now, the RF in ordinary practice, when you're just using the receiver for ordinary use, you have the RF gain turned all the way up. Now, this RF gain is turned all the way up when it's at high noon. Okay, if you go past that, it becomes a squelch. Now, normally, on many radios, you have to punch a button to get a squelch, like my FTDX-3000. But on a lot of radios these days, you can vary the RF gain up to maximum. And then if you go beyond that, it turns into a squelch, which you would use for FM work, or if you're listening for a signal that's going to be very strong. This can be nice because it will cut out when the strong signal isn't there. Now, when would you set the RF gain lower? You set the RF gain lower when you have a strong signal, strong CW or strong single sideband signal, because the automatic gain control keeps bringing the level of the receiver up, and you start to hear background and stuff. By reducing the RF gain down to just enough to hear that strong signal, you end up eliminating a lot of the background noise. This takes a while to get used to, something to play with, but remember to keep this thing up at high noon most of the time. If you turn it all the way up, you won't hear a thing. So that can be a little bit frustrating. Now, there's a place down here for a memory card. This is for things that I think you can probably do the firmware update through this if there is one. But it's for keeping your voice keyer and your CW keyer memories and things like that can go on that, and you can change these. Now, looking at the display, this is a big display. Okay, this is a pretty good sized display. It's easy to see and easy to use. Now, there are lots of different things you can do with this display. You can put all kinds of stuff on it, and the controls are kind of down here. So to get your basic menu, this is the basic radio menu. This has to do with the scope, meaning the band scope, otherwise known as the waterfall or spectrum scope or pan adapter. There are lots of different names for it, but that's what this is for, okay? So you push that, and you'll note that those other scopes go away. And let's see. And then you can play games getting the whole thing. There's also the audio. Now, what the audio is for is the audio scope down at the bottom. This right here, the way this is set up, this is the entire 20-meter band, okay, because we're on 20 meters. This is the audio passband from 0 to 3 kilohertz. So if we tune this into some audio signal,
and that was back in the late 80s when we were down there.
what you're looking at here is the spectrum of the received audio, and here you're looking at a real-time waveform in the time domain. And you can play games with the levels. It's a button that you push. But you can bring the level to something that's manageable in there. Now, in a lot of radios, there are function buttons down here, and up here is the name of what they do. That is not the case here. These actually you touch to get what you want. Okay, this turns on an attenuator. There's a 10 dB, 20 dB, 30 dB, and back to off. Normally, you would leave that off, okay? Now, if you're listening to a very strong signal, or if there's a nearby signal that's really, really strong, you can turn the attenuator on, which reduces the level of everything on the radio all the way across the band by 10 dB, which is about 2.5, and then 12 dB. 2 S units is 12 dB, so not quite 2 S units. Okay, now the hold just turns everything off, not moving, so you can sort of see and look. Okay, the level changes the level of the audio scope here.
We have to buy it. But thank God for electric cars now.
Okay. This allows you to set the time, which is up here. I have it set on Mountain Standard Time. You can, Mountain Daylight Time, I'm sorry. You can put the thing on UTC if you want. Okay, and now there's down here, the menu brings up the menu. Okay, the function brings up some functions like AGC, preamps, notch, noise blanker, noise reduction. The IP Plus is actually a little sneaky trick you can play with digital to analog types of things to give you a little bit more sensitivity. You actually introduce a small amount of noise, which causes a dither in the way the signal is digitized, and is useful for extremely quiet signals. There's your voice. Here is your audio speech compression. Okay. This is the something bandwidth. I'll have to look that up. I don't know. And the mani is whether you can hear yourself or not. This is really only useful when you're using headphones, because if you push this, then you can kind of hear your voice in the headphones. It's like talking on a telephone. You can hear yourself. It seems a little bit more natural. Also, you can tell if you've got some problems. There's a little return down here where you can just press the function button again. Now, the monitor scope tells you whether or not you have that basic band scope in there. Personally, I love the scope. I love it. I love it. I love the scopes on modern radios, because not only do you hear the band, you see the band. And you can see very quickly, as I did a moment ago, where there are signals, and you can tune to them very quickly. Or you can do this. Touch it, and it'll put the cursor right on it. Isn't that cool? Touch tuning. Okay, there's some quick things you can put in the menu. You can add these, okay, and exit will take you out of all of the goodies. This is your basic function right here. Okay, it's got your meter for signal strength, and SWR, okay, and you can change all of that. You know, you touch the meter and it changes, cycles through the different things that it will measure. Okay, I usually like to leave mine on power out, so that I see if there's any power out. Okay. Now, we can add those scopes. That adds the scope to the first half of the menu. I'm going to add that scope, and I'm going to add the audio scope. Okay? So there's all different kinds of scopes that you can add. All right? So that is a major thing. Now, one of the things that I noticed I had a little trouble with this. Somehow I got, see this says single sideband? It'll give you a single sideband. See, it changed the sideband there, okay? Or you can change it to CW, RIDI, data, even AM. FM is for 10 meters, okay? The upper part of 10 meters above 29 megahertz. It's not used anywhere else, nor is it legal anywhere else in the ham bands. On 6 meters, it's legal. Okay, and that'll take us back. You change the filters, filter 1, filter 2, filter 3, back to filter 1. You can change just about anything on the display just by touching it. It's just truly amazing. Now, in many cases, when you go to the menu and you go to set, this is where you get your real menu, okay? And you use the so-called multi-knob for tuning through them. Function, and you push the knob to select, okay? And you can go back, and let's go down here to others, and you've got all kinds of things that you can select with that, and the multi-knob will do that for you when there are choices that can be made, okay? And down here is a button that's actually recessed so that you don't hit it without very deliberately intending to hit it. When you're working split, you're receiving on one frequency, transmitting on another. Now, under certain circumstances, it's very nice to be able to listen to the transmit frequency to see if it's clear, and that's what that button is for. That's all it does, okay? Here's a little indication whether you're transmitting or receiving. Okay, this is your auto-tune button that helps you with the tuner. Okay, here's how you turn speech compression on and off. And it's a way you can also, if you hold that down, it will lock the display. Like if you've got it tuned ready for a net, you might want to lock that so that when your kid comes in and starts twiddling knobs, nothing will happen. Over here you've got receiver incremental tuning, and you can change the distance to transmit. This is a very quick split kind of thing. This clear right here will clear whatever you've got in the receiver incremental tuning and so on. This little button allows you to work split. This allows you to swap frequencies while splitting. So you've got A frequency, B frequency. One you're working split, the other you're listening, you can swap them. Okay, and the thing has memories. For example, you might want to put WWV in a memory or something like that. Okay, now this is the main tuning knob. It's very light to the touch. It has a handy little hole here that you see how it's, I'm just going to start turning it. See, it starts out slowly, then moves quickly like that across the band. All right, so if you want to change bands again, you pick the band you want. Now there's something called band stack registers. Let's see. There's different, no, I keep doing it wrong. Band 14, there's USB. And I keep hitting it. I wanted to go 14 again. USB for data. This is like you'd use for PSK31. Okay, 14 again. It's got data in there again. And then back to USB. This means that you can store 3 settings for 20 meters in what are called band stacking registers. And as you go through them, you can have one set up for single sideband, one set up for PSK31, one set up for RIDI, or something like that. And you just kind of poke through till you get the one that you want, okay? You can tell I'm a novice at this. Okay, so let's see, we'll go ahead and turn the audio on again. This is kind of the way I'd like to leave it. when I'm doing stuff with it. All right, that's the front. Now let's turn this unit around and see what else we see. Over here on the side, you see these screw holes. Okay, these are threaded for the mobile mounting bracket. Okay, that's an optional extra. And that can be very handy, like for example, if you're going to make a Go kit and you want to screw this thing into your kit so that it is held down tight, you can use those mounting screws on the side. Okay, this is the back of the radio. The coax, there is one single coax connector. My FTDX 3000 has 3, so I can have 3 different antennas or 2 antennas plus a receive antenna. For this, you've all got one antenna to do everything. This is not only HF, it's also 6 meters, okay? And the reason they do that is because these days there are a lot of antennas that include 6 meters. A lot of HF antennas that include 6 meters, so they don't have a separate output for 6 meters. There's a ground connection right here. The fan comes on when you are talking, and it will keep the transceiver cool. It comes on when it needs to, okay? This right here is a connection to an Icom antenna tuner. Down here we have the data jack. Icom has a little Y cable that will split this into 2 different ones, or if you can find that particular jack, this is where you would connect external sources of tones, where you do external keying for RIDI and things like that. It has a USB connector. This is a Type B. This is the old-fashioned kind that one end attaches to your computer and the other to an HP printer. Okay, it's the same one. Very, very easy to find that cable. This right here is the remote. This is for a remote keypad. There's a schematic for one in here that does a couple functions like voice memory keying and so on. This one right here is for an external speaker. Again, it's only 1/8 of an inch. So you'll need to find the right plug to do this. Up here now, at 1/4 inch, is your key jack. Now, my FTDX 3000 has 2 key jacks, one on the front panel and one on the back. This has one, and it's on the back, and through this you can put in either a straight key or a set of paddles for keying. The thing has a built-in keyer along with memories and so on. These 2 right here are used when connecting to a non-Icom amplifier. One of them is the ALC feedback. The most amplifiers will send a signal back called the ALC that'll cause this to reduce power until it's the right amount for the amplifier. This other one right here says send. And what happens with this is this will go to ground whenever the transmitter is enabled. This tells the amplifier to go into transmit mode. Okay? So these are both required for most amplifiers. Now my little ALS 500M does not use the ALC. I have to manually reduce the amount of power that's in here. And all of that is done via menus. All right. Now this isn't a complete review of the Icom IC-7300. It's sort of a tour, a get to know, and so on. I was quite impressed that my second contact was with Italy. So it actually does get out. It appears to have good quality audio with the hand microphone. And so there's no problem when you're starting out using the hand microphone. Now, where you might get into trouble is, see, these are my headsets for my FTDX 3000. These are aftermarket headsets. They happen to be by Tentec. And these are very muffled. They emphasize the bass quite a bit. So I've had to go into the radio and adjust it to really boost the treble up so that I can get good audio reports. You don't have to do that with the hand mic on this radio. It's a very good one. If you do get a headset or something like that, there is a way that you can go in to the various menu settings and set up the audio response for the microphone that you're using. Also, for compression, be sure to follow the directions in here. A little compression gives your audio, it sounds kind of very similar, but gives it a lot more punch. Bad compression starts to distort, and nobody likes to hear that. So, what do I think of the Icom 7300 so far? I'm impressed. I'm very impressed. It's very modern, up to date, excellent radio, very, very good value for the money. This is just a very, very nice radio. Now, Icom does offer an upgraded radio, I think it's the 7600, that takes the same basic technology and adds a lot of bells and whistles to turn it into a real DXing and contesting radio. You could still do an awful lot of that with this. This is the kind of radio that if you buy this as your initial radio, you're going to keep this radio a long time because it's just a very, very good, very thorough radio. Do I recommend this for beginners? Well, if you're very persistent and you like to study and you're willing to learn the user interface with this manual, yeah, it's an awful lot of radio. It really is. And it's not very expensive in HF radio terms. It's priced in there with the lower level. Now, there are entry-level radios. Icom does offer both the 718 as a truly entry-level radio and the Icom 7100, which is really more designed for mobile use with a separable control head. This is small enough to use as a mobile if you've got a big enough place to put the thing, but you can't really adjust this on the fly because you've got to sit and stare at the screen for a while to get everything right. I do not recommend using this as a mobile radio. As a portable radio, that's another story. It is not light. It's over 10 pounds heavy, okay, which I was surprised how heavy the thing was. But it's very solidly built, a good radio from a good manufacturer, and it will not steer you wrong. In channel news, please be sure to check out the websites on this screen for different ways that you can support my channel. Please subscribe. Please also click the like button and click the bell and all of those other good things that you need to click. If you go to dcasler.com/Amazon, that will take you to where you can get a lot of the things that I review. You can get them on Amazon. I get a bit of a finder's fee and you don't have to pay any extra. I've also got a little bit of merchandise down below the video. If you look on the YouTube screen, below the video, there's some t-shirts and phone cases and stuff like that that my assistant Julian designed and put up there. So, until we next meet, 73.